Do you feel stuck and you just don't know what to do to change things? Today's guest has an amazing strategy that might just get you going again and might get you unstuck. Stay tuned. Hello, and thank you for tuning in today. I have an amazing guest who has her advice is going to help you get through some major things. Okay. Her name is Lisa Boehm. She's a resilience coach, a podcaster, and author. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. I'm really excited about this interview.
So, what's a resilience coach, and how did you even get into resilience coaching?
Well, I'll try and keep the answers short because I could go on about that. But resilience coach is really someone who helps another person find the answers. I'm not here to tell people what to do, but we all have the answers inside of us. But sometimes when we're going through really hard times, like we all do at some point, we can't see the forest for the trees. So I'm here to really just help guide people through those difficult times and help them realize what they already know inside. How I got to this point was through my own story of adversity. And the short story is that I lost my daughter at the age of 17 and a half. And that was 8.5 years ago. And, you know, as you and your listeners can imagine, that was like learning to do life all over again. There's definitely a part of that journey when you think, I don't know that I can put my feet on the floor ever again. I don't know that I can continue living. And in fact, suffered with some suicidal ideation at points, but really just learned how to crawl out of that darkness. And that's really what led me into wanting to help other people, because there wasn't, you know, when somebody passes away, there's nobody standing there waiting to take you by the hand and to help you. So it's really been a gradual progression to get to this place.
Okay. And how do people get to, what point do they typically get to when they come to you and say, I need you? What are some stages or some mannerisms or things that, you know, you can point out that maybe people should be on the lookout for to know that maybe I need to get help with something?
I never, ever, ever want for people to think that I can replace a therapist.
Right.
I am not a therapist. I 100% recommend that everybody, whether they think they need it or not, visits a therapist. In my situation, even I've met loads of grieving mothers who've said, but I don't want to see anybody who hasn't lost a child themselves. They can't possibly know. And while there is that aspect, I think a therapist has specialty training that can gently help us peel back the layers. We all have trauma. We all grew up with different beliefs in different systems, and those layers need to be dealt with as well. But when people are ready to work with me is when they realize, A, I've got a situation here. I've got this adversity. And B, I am struggling with it. And C, I'm ready to do something about it. Because unless all of those three boxes are checked, we really don't have a good place to start.
Wow. You typically find that it's more so people needing to overcome things that were done that they experienced, like from an external perspective, or things that they've gotten themselves into, if that makes any sense.
Maybe you can give me an example of what they've gotten into, what you're speaking to.
Yeah, maybe just like as a result of personal decisions, like making bad decisions and like spiraling down versus something external, like an external event, unexpected event.
Ready to transform your life or just tired of feeling stuck? Conquer stress, boost confidence, overcome fears, and more. Unlock your potential with a private mindset coaching session with Angela. Your breakthrough begins here. Visit newmindsetnow.com. So don't wait. Book your session now.
Like happening.
I see
Like
folks
both?
with all kinds of experiences and life experiences. And I think it's really getting to that point where I'm feeling stuck, someone's feeling stuck, and that they're in too deep, so to speak, whatever it is.
Okay. So basically like feeling like they're not making any progress in any aspect. They're just like there.
Exactly. Stuck without realizing that there is a way to get unstuck,
Okay.
and just not knowing the direction to turn.
I think that's important. I think it's so common for people to feel that way, and they don't feel like they can tell people, right? They don't want to tell their friends. They don't want to tell, especially their coworkers, sometimes not their family, because once you tell people, sometimes I won't say it's like a label or a string attached, but it's like every time you take a step and you're coming out of it, maybe this person will inadvertently bring you back by like, rehashing things or bringing it. And it's like, I want to move forward, but because I express this to people around me who don't understand how to handle this, like from a professional perspective, it's like bringing me back down again. So I can see the benefit of like coming to you and then you helping them go through, and then they can come back to their friends and family and everything more whole each time, right?
Well, and sadly, as humans and as women, I think we carry a lot of guilt and shame,
Yeah.
no matter where we are in life. And sometimes people feel shame because they have a problem that they can't sort out themselves, right? We're all smart people, and we think, well, how come I can't get through this or deal with this or manage this myself?
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of shame there. And then depending on the situation, for example, grieving mothers, there's sadly tends to be a lot of guilt associated with that, and logically, when we say these words out loud, people, think, well, that's ridiculous. But, I've spoken to so many mothers who've said, as a mother, I had one responsibility, one, to keep my child safe and alive. And I couldn't even do that, and when we think about the numerous ways, that unfortunately children can die. My daughter died in a car accident. It was her fault, but it was just a dumb accident. Kids die from disease. They die from all these things. And, I have never, ever spoken to a mother who should have felt guilty for her daughter or their children's death, rather. But, so there's all these layers of emotions that we have to work through as well, and that we carry alongside. So that's especially so important to get help with.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I wanted to ask, what is 1% shift strategy? Because everybody thinks about 1% in terms of like financial, like economic levels or something, but what's a 1% shift strategy?
Yeah, it's something that I kind of stumbled on myself, and something that I was doing in my own journey without even realizing it. And essentially, it boils down to baby steps. We live in this world of instant gratification. One example that I use all the time, because I think a lot of us can relate, is weight loss, right? Like, we don't want to do this slowly and comfortably. Like, we want to get in there and we want to lose those 20 pounds, and we want to be, have our smoking hot summer body in a bikini in 2 weeks. And sometimes some of us have tried some of these, really drastic measures to lose weight, right? Like, we've eaten 200 calories a day and gone for a sweat run, and then, spent an hour in the gym. And the problem with these big change philosophies is that they're uncomfortable. They're hard. Have you ever tried to subsist on 200 calories, with running an hour and go? It's hard. It's really hard. So it's uncomfortable. It's not sustainable. So we don't stick with it. Right. And what I found, like I say myself to begin with, is that it's the small, teeniest, tiniest little things that we can do. They're easy they're comfortable. And because they're easy and comfortable, we'll tend to repeat them and keep up with them.
Right.
And that's where the magic happens, because these tiny little changes that we make, they become habits.
Right.
And the little habits are actually what create big changes. And when I'm delivering a keynote or speaking to a group about this, I get a lot of, like, really, really, lady, like 1%, a 1% change is really going to change my life. And my question is always this, it comes back to simple math. If we make a 1% shift in our daily lives every day for 100 days, what happens?
Yeah.
Well, either we are meeting that goal head on, like we've smashed that goal, or we have made some awesome headway there. We're going to meet that goal, and we're probably going to surpass that goal at some point. So it comes back to, and this can apply to everything from finances to weight loss to even helping those who are grieving, right? So it's just something that I have implemented into my coaching, and it has just made, when I'm talking to people, especially for the first time, and at the end of the session, I say, this is my philosophy, this 1% shift strategy. We're not going to do anything crazy. We're not going to, make these giant uncomfortable changes in your life. You can almost see their shoulders just go, because they're expecting someone to say, we're going to turn your life around and we're going to, change everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's where we as human beings, the resistance comes out. We're like, no, can't do it.
Yeah.
So that in a nutshell is what that's all about.
That makes a lot of sense. When you started, did you have this 1% strategy, or did you notice that people tended to recoil from like a big shift? So you were like, okay, let's make it smaller.
This goes back prior to losing my daughter 8.5 years ago. I was actually a health coach. And that's where I started really observing, like, people want the big outcomes fast, right? That's who we are. We're instant gratification seekers.
Yeah.
But that my clients would tell me that that's what they would want. I have a bikini body next month, but they weren't prepared to take the actions, whether psychologically or physically, right? Not many people are. So then, just asking questions and getting feedback and coming at it from different angles, and really just examining psychology a little bit closer. That's where I started to play around with this. And then after my daughter died, it was, how am I going to do this? Because nobody hands you a manual on how to get through grief and loss. And started really recognizing that it was all about the baby steps. And then just in everything I've done, if I steer away from the 1% shift strategy, inevitably I come back to it, because it's just like, this works for everything.
Yeah, it really does. I can even see that working from like a building a business perspective, right? Like, instead of trying to think you need everything in place before you start, just start. Like, just take steps. Just go. Just move. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you find yourself stuck and you think, well, what's my 1% today? Well, what's one thing you can do today
Yep.
that's going to, be directed in that direction?
Yeah.
But we don't have to solve the problem today. We just have to make one step forward.
Exactly. I love that. So I wanted to ask you, I saw that you wrote something about perspective. So I wanted to ask you your opinion. Why is perspective so powerful?
Again, just life experience has taught me, and observing, that the way we look at things is so important. So important. And I hate to keep coming back to this grief situation, but I think that is such a strong emotional thing, that whether someone has experienced the loss of a child or not, they can appreciate it. So as you might guess, I was a very, very angry mother after my daughter died, even though, the accident was ultimately caused by Katie. I felt so gypped, and these are literally the words that I would say after, like, why my kid? Katie was in grade 12. She never got to graduate. She had just received an entrance scholarship into nursing school, which she would never get to use. She would never get married. She would, never have children, so on and so forth. I was angry. There's a lot of really awful people in this world doing awful things. And my kid was a rule follower. She was a good kid. She was going to do good things in this world. But in time, I mean, this does not happen right away. But in time, when I was able to take a step back from my situation and able to reflect a bit, the fact of the matter is that I've spent 33 years working at the local cancer clinic, 33 years of watching families walk through the door, 33 years of watching children get cancer treatment. And, just sadly well aware that a lot of these families come back day after day, week after week, year after year sometimes. And unfortunately, a lot of these parents don't get to take their children home. So instead of saying, angrily, I only got 17 and a half years with my daughter, I've changed my perspective. The way I think about it is, I got 17 and a half years with Katie. They were happy. They were healthy. We got to travel a lot, make amazing memories. And for that, I am so grateful. I think that, you might call it mindset, but for me, perspective is almost like having a magnifying glass. And in that magnifying glass, there's a lens. And imagine that that lens has the ability to flip one way or the other. And that we are the ones that can control how that magnifying glass is focused. And it's really hard. It's really hard sometimes. But when we can make the effort and at least sometimes flip that lens, it can be a game changer in what we are trying to deal with.
Wow, that's so powerful. And I totally agree with you. And in my work, we call it reframing.
Same
So
idea.
so the lens, I actually love that description that you gave. Yeah, it's so it can make all the difference in the world when you get change a circumstance, changing the perspective. Like you said, it can just be life-changing.
Absolutely. There was a time too, I had some EMDR therapy done a couple of years after we lost Katie, and it was for something that was related but different. It was actually related to my work in cancer care. And if you're familiar with EMDR, the whole thing is reframing, right? Mm-hmm. And I went in there thinking it was a situation I had with a patient, and it was to the point where I didn't know if I could go back to work because I was questioning my own abilities as a radiation therapist. And, at the end of the session, even the first session, we were talking a little bit, and I said, I realized that I did everything right. I'm very capable. And if this were to happen again, I would do exactly the same thing. But I think we need to, like I say, step back and almost move to the side a little bit so our angle's different. Because when we're looking at something the same way all the time, we're going to only see the same thing every time, right?
Yeah. I think that even translates to the people that you're with, the people you surround yourself with, right? If you all have the same perspective, like how do you grow? How do you make changes when nothing else, when the perspective of everyone else around you is the exact same, but you want to do something different, but you're back here, you're still here in this circle. What do you think about that?
I can't remember who coined this phrase, and I should really look it up one of these days, but we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. I could not agree more with that. And the simplest analogy I can come up with is, let's say you are somebody who wants to get more fit. Well, are you going to meet your goals if you're hanging out with the happy hour crowd? So every Wednesday and Saturday or whatever it is, you're going for wings and hanging out at the local bar, having drinks. Or if you go and join the running room, where they have free runs I think it is Wednesdays and Saturdays, who's going to help you get to your goals? Right? Well, the folks at the running room, for example, but that goes for everything in life. I think we have to be really conscious of who we surround ourselves with. And sometimes that means getting out of the comfort and meeting new people and going to, whether it's business groups, if you're an entrepreneur, meeting new people, hanging out with those people, or whatever it is. I just think that is so important. And I never really realized that until I was well into my 40s, honestly.
It makes huge difference whether you realize it or not. So yeah, I completely agree with that. So I want to thank you for being with us today. I think what you shared was so insightful and powerful, and I think it could help transform lives, right? Maybe it gave people something to think about that they never thought about before, and gave them hope. If you can't completely turn your life around right now, you can take this one little tiny, tiny step.
Absolutely. It all begins with hope.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to ask you one more question. So it doesn't have to necessarily relate to what we spoke about, right?
Okay.
But what's the one piece of advice that you can think of based on your entire life experience that you can share with a woman that may change your life today?
You know what? I think I'm going to say this. You are stronger than you think. You are stronger than you think. And, again, not sure who said it the first time, but we all have a 100% survival rate. We have survived so much, no matter how old you are. Look back in your life, you have survived every single day. And even though that we can feel, beat up, broken down, and all of this kind of thing, you're surviving. Just keep putting one step in front of the other.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.
Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, share this with someone you care about, because this may just change their life. They may be going through something that you're not aware of. Yeah, and see you next week. Bye.